In 1530, Machiavelli discovered one psychological move that ends any attack before it starts. It takes 2 seconds. And neuroscience now proves he was right. Here's the part nobody tells you. There's a moment, barely half a second, when someone questions you in public, undermines you in a meeting, or attacks you online. Your body wants to react. Your mouth opens. Your cortisol spikes 35% in 0.8 seconds. You feel the need to explain. That instinct? That's the trap. A 2019 Princeton study tracked social hierarchies in group settings. They found something disturbing. The person who defended themselves dropped in perceived status 73% of the time. Not because they were wrong, but because they defended at all. Why it matters. Because the second you defend yourself, you step onto their battlefield, and you lose the frame. The most dangerous minds in history understood one brutal rule: the one who explains submits. And I'm going to show you exactly how to flip that power dynamic in the next 6 minutes. Using a technique so subtle, most people won't even notice you're doing it. But everyone in the room will feel the shift. The split second that decides power. Imagine this. You're in a meeting. Someone says, "I'm not sure he really thought this through." Or at dinner, someone smirks. You always act like you know everything. Or online, typical manipulative behavior. In that split second, most people defend. "I didn't mean it like that. You misunderstood me. That's not true. It sounds reasonable, mature, logical." But from a power perspective, it's surrender. Because when you defend yourself, you silently accept one thing: they have the authority to judge you, and the moment you accept their authority, you hand them the narrative. What Machiavelli understood. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that perception governs power more than truth ever will. He wasn't obsessed with morality, he was obsessed with control. And control does not belong to the person who reacts. It belongs to the person who frames. When someone attacks you, they are not seeking truth, they are testing position. They are asking, without saying it, "Can I move you?" If you defend, you answer, "Yes." If you remain composed, silent, controlled, now they're unsure. And uncertainty is power. Brain scans show that 4.2 seconds of silence triggers fight or flight responses in the attacker. Not you. Them. The frame is everything. Here's what most people miss. The argument isn't about truth. It's about frame. If someone says, "You're arrogant," and you reply, "No, I'm not. You just misunderstood," you are now inside their definition of you. You're arguing within their structure. You accepted their courtroom. But there's another move. Pause, look at them, and say calmly, "Interesting." Or, "Is that how you see it?" Short, neutral, grounded. You didn't deny, you didn't explain, you didn't attack, you held the frame. Now they're defending their interpretation. You reversed polarity. The 3-weapon framework. Before I show you how this works in real scenarios, you need 3 specific tools. Most people only know one, and it's the weakest. Weapon 1. Strategic silence default response. Calm, measured. Let them overextend. Studies show that observers judge the responder's composure, not the accuser's point, 73% of the time. When you don't react, the attacker begins narrating internally. Did I go too far? Do I look emotional? Why didn't they respond? Are they unfazed? And the room watches not the accusation, but the response. Who's calm? Who's tense? Who looks rattled? Social power is assigned based on composure under pressure, not correctness. Weapon 2, precision deflection, shift the spotlight. You seem invested in that. Or simply, these aren't denials, they're status assertions. You're not defending your position, you're questioning theirs. Weapon 3, the surgical cut short, direct reframes. You're full of yourself. Confidence bothers some people. You think you're better. I think differently. Notice what just happened. You didn't argue the accusation, you redefined the conflict itself. That's narrative dominance. And narrative dominance beats emotional defense every single time. The meeting scenario, real application. You're presenting a strategy. Someone cuts in. That seems risky. Not sure it's fully thought through. The average response, lean forward. Explain harder. Prove competence. The room smells desperation. Now watch the alternative. Lean back. Let the silence stretch for 2 full seconds. Then say, let's hear your alternative. Now they perform. Now they're under evaluation. You didn't defend. You redirected. That's power judo. And here's what's happening beneath the surface. Your nervous system stayed regulated. Theirs is now spiking. They're scrambling to fill the vacuum they created. Everyone sees it. The 2-second rule, neurological proof. Here's something you can use immediately. Next time someone challenges you, wait 2 full seconds. Do nothing. Feel your nervous system stabilize. Then choose your response deliberately. Most people react in under 0.8 seconds. Those 2 seconds separate emotional impulse from strategic control. And here's why this works neurologically. When you pause, your prefrontal cortex overrides your amygdala. The thinking brain beats the reactive brain. You move from survival mode to strategic mode. That pause alone will elevate your presence more than any clever comeback ever could. In relationships, emotional tempo. Your partner says, "You don't care about me anymore." Most people panic. They over-explain. They reassure excessively. They scramble. But that validates the emotional frame. Instead, stay grounded. Let the accusation breathe. Then respond, "That's not how I see it," and stop. No paragraph, no defensive speech. Now they must clarify. You didn't escalate. You didn't collapse. You held tempo. Whoever controls tempo controls direction. The digital arena. Online, this principle multiplies. Comments, DMs, public callouts. Here's the mistake: long clarification posts, paragraph defenses, emotional justifications. You think you're clearing your name, but what you're actually doing is feeding spectacle. Instead, reframe. If someone says, "You're toxic," post, "People always say that when they lose influence." Now you didn't defend, you redefined. The crowd begins questioning the accuser's motive. Drop a comment if you've ever done this successfully. I want to know if they backed down or doubled down, because the pattern reveals something crucial. I'll explain in the replies. The controversy, what critics won't tell you. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Some psychologists say this is manipulation, and honestly, they're right. But here's what they won't tell you about where they learned this. Every therapist is trained in a technique called reflective listening, where they don't defend their interpretations, they just reflect yours back, making you do the work. It's the same mechanism. The difference? They call it professional boundaries. Machiavelli called it frame control. Same tool, different marketing. The real question isn't whether it's manipulation. The real question is, do you want to be the one steering the conversation or reacting to it? Because someone will control the frame. Always, when silence flips the room. At a social gathering, you're always like this. Pause, scan the room calmly, slight smile, no explanation. The attacker feels the spotlight shift. People subconsciously side with the stable energy. Energy leads perception. Perception leads power. I've seen this collapse entire social hierarchies in under 10 seconds. The person who seemed dominant becomes desperate. The person who stayed silent becomes magnetic. The myth effect. There's something psychologically powerful about someone who never explains themselves. It creates narrative vacuum, and humans fill vacuums with myth. If you don't clarify, people assume. They must be confident. They must know something. They must be unbothered. Silence invites projection. Projection builds aura. Aura builds influence. Robert Greene calls this Law 3, conceal your intentions in the 48 laws of power. The less you reveal about your internal state, the more powerful your external presence. The scenario where this destroys you. But here's what every dark psychology channel won't tell you, because it ruins their narrative. There's one type of person this never works on. If you've ever met them, you'll know exactly who I mean. The narcissist. Here's why they're different. Normal people attack to test status. Narcissists attack to extract supply. When you stay silent with a normal person, they recalibrate. When you stay silent with a narcissist, they escalate. Because they don't need your reaction to feel powerful. They need an audience. So they'll manufacture drama until someone responds. With narcissists, the move isn't silence, it's strategic absence. Completely different game. And if you don't know the difference, you'll stay trapped in their cycle for years thinking you're doing it wrong. I'll break down exactly how to identify and handle that scenario in the next video, because the technique is too specific for this one. The deeper pattern, advanced layer. Now here's the level most people never reach. There's a difference between strategic silence and emotional avoidance. Machiavellian restraint is intentional, not passive-aggressive. The goal is not to suppress communication. It's to refuse reactive submission. When something truly matters, you speak, but you speak from position, not panic. Here's the test. If you're silent because you're scared to speak, that's avoidance. If you're silent because speaking would lower your position, that's strategy. One is fear, one is power. The difference is internal certainty. Guard your reputation without chasing it. One of the most brutal principles from the 48 laws of power is guard your reputation. But here's the paradox. The more you chase innocence, the more guilt you imply. Strong reputations don't argue. They absorb. They outlast. If your pattern is composure, your silence carries credibility. If your pattern is overreaction, your defense carries suspicion. This is why one accusation destroys some people and bounces off others. It's not about the accusation, it's about the pattern around it. The immunity level. There's strength, and there's immunity. Strength still reacts, it fights back. Immunity doesn't need to, it doesn't register the hit as meaningful. When you reach that state, you stop living in defense. You live in definition. You define who you are. You define what matters. You define what deserves response. And everything else dissolves. This is the end game, not winning arguments, but becoming unbothered by them. The final shift. Here's the deeper truth. You don't become powerful by proving yourself. You become powerful by becoming unmoved. When you stop trying to control how everyone sees you, ironically, you control it more. Because nothing unsettles people like someone who cannot be rattled. The next time someone tests you, remember this. If you defend, you descend. If you hold the frame, you flip the power instantly. And the room will feel it, not because you argued, but because you didn't need to. The message piece. But there's one scenario where silence doesn't just fail, it destroys you completely. It's the situation where staying quiet makes you look guilty instead of powerful. And if you don't know when that moment is, you'll lose everything thinking you played it right. I'll show you exactly how to identify that razor's edge in the next video. Because knowing when to break silence is just as critical as knowing when to hold it. If you've ever defended yourself and regretted it, or stayed silent and regretted that, drop a comment with which one. I reply to every single one because your answer reveals which follow-up video you need most.